Kilmar Abrego Garcia. You know his name. I know his name. America knows his name. He has received no due process, and he has become kind of the banner name for leading the charge against the illegal immigration enforcement processes that the Trump administration has pretended to try to say actually works when we all know that it hasn't. But what has Kilmar Abrego Garcia done? Well, folks, he has now filed an amended complaint, an amended lawsuit in federal court in Maryland. It is a 40-page lawsuit, and it's important because it documents and it verifies and it corroborates that Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, is running a prison called CECOT that we've heard that people from the United States have been sent to in the dead of night over their objections. And it is a horrible facility, and it is one that the United States has basically conscripted to be used on their own to be able to house in constructive custody people that otherwise should be here in the United States. Now, this lawsuit is important. It's being brought by Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, which is his full name, his wife, Jennifer Stefania Vasquez Sura, and his minor child known by the initials of AAV as in Victor. He's suing Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, Marco Rubio. But I wanted to highlight a few things from this lawsuit for you because it's really important. And again, Kilmar Abrego Garcia has now confirmed in his lawsuit that there is torture. There is torture and abuse that is being inflicted upon the people that are at CECOT. Now, before you come at me and you say, oh, well, Katie, it's a prison and it's a prison for terrorists and gang people. I get it, okay? But guess what? You can't abuse and torture those people too. It's still a prison. And I understand that you may be an advocate for incarceration, which let me be very clear. I am an advocate for incarceration for people that have committed crimes, but you cannot abuse them and you cannot torture them. And that is what Abrego Garcia says is happening. So the lawsuit is very clear. In paragraph 5 of his lawsuit, he clearly says that the defendants, meaning Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, and others, including Marco Rubio, they have a disdain for the law and legal process. Their cruelty shocks the conscience and demands immediate, sustained judicial relief and oversight. It also marks a profound constitutional crisis in which executive agencies have repeatedly and deliberately flouted the authority of multiple federal courts, including the Supreme Court itself. The integrity of our constitutional republic and the rule of law depends on Plaintiff Abrego Garcia's ability to obtain complete relief for these egregious wrongs, lest we accept a government that operates above the law and beyond the reach of judicial authority. End quote. Boom. That accurately, very quickly summarizes the constitutional crisis that we face right now. And the lawsuit goes on to describe how those agencies and those people like Noem and Bondi and Rubio and DHS and ICE, that they completely and constantly and continue to flout judicial orders, and that they continue to give the middle finger to the judiciary when they should be giving it the equal respect that it deserves. So let's move on. Now, important note to remind everybody, the defendants, the United States government admitted that the removal of Abrego Garcia was an administrative error. Now remember that, right? There has been an admission that Kilmar Abrego Garcia's removal from the United States was an administrative error. And I'm going to footnote this because you guys will remember here at the Katie Phang News Channel, I covered Emile Beauvais' nomination for the Third Circuit Court of Appeals and how a whistleblower came forward, Arez Ravani, and how he said he's the lawyer that went to court and said that it was an administrative error to remove Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And remember how all of the whistleblower letter came out and it said that there's been affirmative lies that have been told to the courts from DHS and ICE and the DOJ? Well, yeah, so it was an administrative error. And here is the relevant law. And there's a lot of it here in the lawsuit, but I want to make sure you guys understand the basis of this. Federal law prohibits the government from removing a non-citizen to a country where they are more likely than not to face persecution on account of a statutorily protected ground. This protection is typically referred to as a withholding of removal. That is what Kilmar Abrego Garcia had. An immigration judge, prior to him being illegally removed recently, an immigration judge a few years ago said that I'm going to enter a withholding of removal order so that Abrego Garcia doesn't get returned to the country where he was going to be facing persecution, torture, or abuse. But of course, we do know that that has since happened and that he's since been brought back. But that's a whole other conversation. Let's go on. Now, starting in paragraph 43 in the facts of this lawsuit, it says clearly, Plaintiff Abrego Garcia is a citizen of El Salvador and no other country. Plaintiff Abrego Garcia is not a member of and has no affiliation with Tren de Aragua, MS-13, or any other criminal or street gang. And here's the kicker, paragraph 45. Although Plaintiff Abrego Garcia has been accused of general, quote, gang affiliation, the U.S. government has never produced credible evidence supporting this accusation, and there has been no finding made by any judicial tribunal of any such affiliation. An important, uncontroverted fact. No evidence has been brought forward by the federal government to support the idea that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a member of Tren de Aragua, the gang from El Salvador. Prior to April 2025, Plaintiff Abrego Garcia had no criminal history. Separate and apart from his May 21st, 2025 Tennessee indictment, remember that bullshit one that they did to be able to bring him back from El Salvador to face federal charges, he has never been charged or convicted of any criminal charges in the United States, El Salvador, or any other country. Didn't Donald Trump say that he was just going to be kicking out of the country all the violent people? Guy's never had any prior contact with the criminal justice system. Paragraph 76. Before his unlawful removal, Plaintiff Abrego Garcia was a union member and was employed full-time as a first-year sheet metal apprentice. In addition, he had been pursuing his own license at the University of Maryland. As a condition of his withholding of removal status, he is required to check in with ICE once a year. He has been fully compliant. He appeared for his most recent check-in on January 2nd, 2025 without incident. And they attach actually here as an exhibit to this lawsuit, his check-in records. Paragraph 79 just reinforces. There remains no known link or association between him and the MS-13 gang or any other gang, and no judicial tribunal has found that any such link or association exists. Again, underscoring that there are no facts or evidence that supports the government's claim that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a member of a gang, and that's the reason why he should be removed from the United States. Now, the lawsuit continues to go on, and it's worth reading, people, because it makes clear that Abrego Garcia was duped time and time again by the federal government. After he was taken into custody and before he was removed to CECOT in El Salvador, he asked to speak to a lawyer. He wanted to be able to see a judge. He wanted to make sure that he got the relief that he was legally required to receive. And every time he was reassured falsely that he wasn't going to be deported to El Salvador, but rather was being transported to Texas to appear before a judge. Relying on this misrepresentation, Plaintiff Abrego Garcia cooperated with further transport. Now, this is before they took him from Maryland and that they were going to put him on a flight to Louisiana, and then he was going to go to Texas. I mean, remember, the federal government is moving people around very quickly, so it makes it harder for them to not only have counsel and representation, but harder for people like us and family members to be able to find them, to be able to help them. And that was paragraph 92. Paragraph 99. Abrego Garcia consistently kept on telling them, look, I have legal permission to work in the United States until 2029. I have a withholding of removal. He repeatedly requested judicial review. Officials consistently responded with false assurances that he would see a judge, deliberately misleading Plaintiff Abrego Garcia. Now, eventually, when he made it to El Salvador and he was put in CECOT, his family hired a lawyer in El Salvador. Paragraph 105. To date, there are no known criminal charges levied against Plaintiff Abrego Garcia in El Salvador. Paragraph 106. ICE and DHS have taken no steps to reopen the removal case of Plaintiff Abrego Garcia, nor to challenge or rescind his withholding order. Now, here's where it gets particularly upsetting, because now we actually have a firsthand description of how people are treated when they are in custody at CECOT. Firsthand from Plaintiff Abrego Garcia himself. He was one of 261 non-citizens, including 238 Venezuelans and 23 Salvadorans, that were sent on March 15, 2025 to El Salvador without going through any legal processes whatsoever in front of an immigration judge. That was paragraph 110. Paragraph 112. Upon information and belief, all defendants are aware that the government of El Salvador tortures individuals detained in CECOT. Indeed, U.S. President Donald Trump has made comments to the press expressing glee and delight at the torture that the government of El Salvador inflicts upon detainees in CECOT. CECOT conditions have garnered attention for human rights organizations. Each of the 256 cells is intended to only hold approximately 80 inmates, but often holds nearly double. The cramped cells are equipped with tiered metal bunks with no mattresses, 2 basins for washing, and 2 open toilets. There are no windows, fans, or air conditioning despite the region's warm and humid climate. Inmates in CECOT are confined to their cells for 23.5 hours daily and cannot go outdoors. I'm going to repeat that for you. Inmates in CECOT are confined to their cells for 23.5 hours daily and cannot go outdoors. 23 and a half hours. Last I checked, there's 24 hours in a day. So for other than 30 minutes in a day, inmates in CECOT are confined to their cells. They are denied access to reading materials. They are prohibited from receiving visits from family and friends. Meals are provided through the bars of the cells. Paragraph 115. In May of 2023, Cristosal, a leading human rights organization in El Salvador, released a comprehensive report detailing severe human rights abuses within the country's prison system, especially at CECOT. The investigation documented the deaths of 153 inmates between March 27th of 2022 and March 27th of 2023, attributing many to torture, beatings, mechanical asphyxiation, otherwise known as strangulation, and lack of medical attention. Autopsies revealed common patterns of lacerations, hematomas, sharp object wounds, and signs of choking or strangulation. Survivors reported being forced to pick food off the floor of their mouths, subjected to electric shocks, and exposed to untreated skin fungus epidemics. Abrego Garcia then goes on to describe in this lawsuit how he was treated. He was beaten. He was forced to strip, subjected to physical abuse, including being kicked in the legs with boots and struck on his head and arms. He was struck with wooden batons. He was forced to kneel from approximately 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. in a cell. Guards would strike anyone who fell from exhaustion. He was denied bathroom access, soiled himself, confined to metal bunks with no mattresses, in an overcrowded cell with no windows, with bright lights that remained on 24 hours a day, and minimal access to sanitation. Gang members violently harm each other with no intervention from guards or personnel. During his first 2 weeks at CECOT, this is paragraph 126, Plaintiff Abrego Garcia suffered a significant deterioration in his physical condition and lost approximately 31 pounds. But on April 9th, now remember, as time is going by, his name is becoming more and more well known in the media, right? So more and more people are paying attention to what's happening to him. So on April 9th, he and 4 others were transferred to a different module at CECOT where they were photographed with mattresses and better food, photos that were staged to document improved conditions. And then he was transferred alone to the Centro Industrial Prison Facility, another location, the next day on April 10th. While at that prison facility, he was frequently hidden from visitors so that people couldn't see him, right? And then he was basically denied any communication with anyone until Senator Van Hollen visited him on April 17th. Now, it's a multi-count lawsuit that includes things like violation of the removal statute, violation of his due process rights under the Fifth Amendment, and it goes on. And as we always do here at the Katie Phang News Channel, what have we talked about? We talk about going to the request for relief or the prayer for relief. And in this lawsuit, it's on page 39. Kilmar Abrego Garcia seeks the following. He wants a declaration that the defendants have violated the laws of the United States and the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution. Those are the due process rights we've talked about. He wants to be restored to the status quo ante, meeting before he was taken into custody in Maryland. He wants to be able to go back to that time in terms of his immigration status and to his life, frankly. He wants a writ of habeas corpus. We've talked about habeas corpus here at the Katie Phang News Channel. He wants the court to bring him in front of the court, which it kind of has at this point, right? I mean, he is back on U.S. soil, but he wants the court to order the defendants to show cause why continued detention is lawfully permissible. And if they cannot meet their burden, that he wants the court to say that he can be immediately released from custody. Stop. Footnote. So we know that a federal magistrate judge has ordered his release on his pending criminal case, but we also know that he's now asked to stay in custody because he knows that as soon as he's released from jail, that ICE is going to take him and immediately deport him. So he's in a no-win situation. So I want you to stop and consider the fact that this man who has now suffered all of this abuse in CECOT and all of this horrific treatment by the federal government, that he's actually voluntarily asking to stay in federal custody right now in jail because he doesn't want to be immediately deported, because then we'll never get him back. He also wants the defendants to be ordered to return him to his prior order of supervision. You know, the one where he was checking in yearly to ICE and there was no incident, and the one where he was living in the United States so that he wouldn't be removed to El Salvador because he would be persecuted because he fled El Salvador as a child to escape gang violence. You know that part? Well, he wants to be able to just go back to living his life with his wife and his kid and to work. And he wasn't here violating any laws. I mean, people, again, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is one of hundreds of people that have been rounded up and shipped out of the United States in the dead of night with no due process. And I understand that we focus a lot on him, and his name, again, has kind of become like the banner name for the movement and for the cause of making sure that everybody gets their constitutionally guaranteed due process. But this is an incredibly, incredibly well-written lawsuit. And as always, we want to give attribution to the people that deserve it. The law firm of Quinn Emanuel, powerhouse litigation law firm, has been doing this work on a pro bono basis, representing Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and you can find their names on page 40 of this lawsuit. They deserve credit, people, for the work that they're doing on behalf of him against the Trump administration. I just want to quickly say, we have to look at this lawsuit and we have to see that it's an important one because it provides details that corroborate stuff that we know about human rights violations and treatment of cruelty and abuse and torture that is happening at places like CECOT. You know, Bukele, the president of El Salvador, came here to the United States and sat in our Oval Office. It's not Donald Trump's Oval Office. He came and he sat in our Oval Office and he laughed and he joked with JD Vance and Marco Rubio and Donald Trump. And you know, he's like, you know, why would I bring him back here? You know, why would I facilitate a terrorist returning to the United States? There's no evidence that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a terrorist. There has been no evidence that many of the people that have been swept up in these immigration raids have committed a single crime whatsoever. They are just rounding you up because you are brown. They are rounding you up because you look like you are Hispanic. They just want to get rid of the Latinos. You know, and you thought that they were only going to go after certain people? Well, that was really foolish, right? Because as we've seen from people like Laura Loomer, the vilest of the vile, she's now posted on social media, and I want to pull it up because it's worthwhile sharing with you because it's just disgusting. This is what Laura Loomer posted on that cesspool, which is X, but here you go. She did the following, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Alligator lives matter. The good news is alligators are guaranteed at least 65 million meals if we get started now. Now, this is for that alligator Alcatraz abomination concentration camp that Ron DeSantis is also gleefully so excited about, that Donald Trump came and toured with Kristi Noem, and they're standing there laughing and joking around in that concentration camp. And here's the thing. The entire Latino population in the United States is 65 million. So Laura Loomer then tries to save herself by saying there are 65 million illegal aliens in the United States. And yet she gets fact-checked. The U.S. population of illegal immigrants is estimated to be 11 to 12 million. I'm not even going to give credence even to the fact check in the regard that it doesn't make a difference. But this is what we're talking about though, right? Laura Loomer is calling for the complete eradication of Latinos from the United States. And if you think she's going to stop with just them, or that the Republicans are just going to stop with Latinos or Hispanics, you're dead ass wrong. They're going to just start trying to find excuses to be able to eliminate anybody from the United States that doesn't meet their white Christian nationalist agenda. And the most ridiculous thing is, we're all children of immigrants. Barring somebody who is of one of the original tribes, right? We're all children of immigrants. We're all basically immigrants. So it's time to be, and it's time to continue to be, mad, outraged, and to demand accountability. This 40-page lawsuit, people, this is what we call a demand for accountability. This is what we call using the judicial system to be able to achieve accountability. We're going to watch this lawsuit carefully, as we've been watching most of these cases carefully. I wanted you to know about the facts of this case because I thought it was really important for you to know. I care. I care deeply, and I want to make sure that you care just as deeply because we have to be here for each other. I'll see you on the other side. Katie Phang here. The truth matters now more than ever. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Thanks for watching.